So moving on to the next part, which is the protection part. So in my mind, data protection has to be seen in both aspects, whether the first being the digital rights management and the second being the data loss prevention solutions. And it has to be a combination of both, and they are not mutually exclusive. You need to have they complement each other, and only once you have a holistic approach in place, you can have a full assurance of a right strategy for data protection. When you talk about protection here, I'm from a school of thought where you start with the approach of, if you can afford to do a lockdown, you start with locking down your peripheral devices and then opening up wherever you have a business justification for the same. And then just make sure that you start monitoring those. So, if you can do that, the first thing to do is to, control your mass storage devices to, the CD writers and all the other access points on your endpoints. Implementing solutions such as URL filtering and to, control your web access. And then, once you have that in place, whatever, whichever users are having confidential information through which you identify through your discovery phase, you start doing encryption. You start enforcing encryption, and also you can now implement, DRM solutions for your information, such as you can, unstructured data also can be protected, and you can have controls such as who can access it, when that person can access it, how long that person can use it, and then eventually you also have a control of making sure that the document is invalid to that end user after the period of time. So you can define those policies, and you can empower your users who are creating these confidential documents to be able to deploy those policies, so that, even if that information is sent out from your inbox to somebody else, you have complete control over that information in spite of it being sent to that person and he has an opportunity to send it to somebody else. So that is a right approach towards controlling this sharing of documents. And the other option is in terms of encrypting your data exchanges right from the time it is created till the time it is processed at the vendor application. Now, just to give an example, what you can do is you can, in a traditional way, you have, you can encrypt a particular raw data before it is being sent to a vendor place, and then you share the password so that it can be decrypted and used at the vendor end. What you could do is that you can deploy a DRM solution wherein you can have the key shared on those applications and embed in those applications, so that from end to end, right from the time it is created till the time it is processed at the vendor application, there is absolutely no manual intervention and no password required to be entered. It is actually processed by the application, and the information is not in clear at all throughout its life cycle. So that gives you complete comfort as information security professionals that the data can never be tampered because it will never be clear throughout its life cycle. Moving on to the next phase, which is prevention. Now, while you can enforce all and protect all these documents, there is a limited thing that can be done, because you cannot have every single document covered in that. You adopt a risk-based approach on that. So the next phase is the prevention, which is really writing the policies and looking at, how do I make sure that, if there is a zero tolerance issue, in terms of confidential information being sent out, then I can do a content filtering, whether I can do it based on email or on the endpoint. So I have the DLP solution working on each of these, areas, and make sure that if there is a non-compliance to a policy, then I can stop that user from sending that information out. So I think the important aspect to get it right here is that you need to make sure that you have fine-tuned the policy so that the false positive rates are minimum, so that it does not create a business disruption and the data which needs to go out goes out. The second thing is you need to define your policies such that only the most critical ones, like for example insider trading or intellectual property or something which is very, very important for you, are the ones which are actually put in this kind of prevention phase. The next part, which is really the most important aspect of and a quick win which is available and it's easy to deploy, is really how do you do the monitoring part. And what you can do here is you can have the same policies working, but instead of prevention mode, it actually works in a monitoring mode, wherein it always pops up a message to the end user saying that what you're trying to do, whether you're copying a file on your USB stick, or whether you're sending a file on your email, or whether you're uploading some information on web, is against the policy, and you have a choice whether to continue or not. So what has been experienced for those people who have been using this option is that most part of the time users tend to not go ahead if they know that it is it is actually non-compliant to the bank's policy. So and having said that, whichever user chooses to do that, you actually get a MIS of that, and you can always look at what the user has done is right or wrong. So this is the best approach to have an instantaneous awareness to the end user, automated, and on his desktop. So it helps instant awareness as far as the policy is concerned, and also helps you to monitor it. So again, it's very important to make sure that you have the right policy in place, so that you don't have too many false positives. But even if there are false positives, you can still live with them because you're not really disrupting the business flow. The users can still go ahead and actually send their information out. So that's the monitoring phase. So to summarize, if you look at data protection, you need to have a holistic strategic approach towards it. It has to be having all these 4 different components, addressed one step at a time. But there are certain areas which you can start earlier, and others which you may want to start as the organization matures. The challenge is definitely there, and it's more now than ever before. And so I think we need to make sure that we have the right. Each organization is different, and each organization has its own challenges. So whatever works for your organization, you start with that, and have the right approach, especially because the traditional ISMS approach does not work for data protection the way we see it. So that's really what I had to cover